Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups. We have a very special treat for you today. We have the writer of the upcoming Mad Cave Studios comic book, Over the Ropes, Jay Sandlin, with us. Jay, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me in your treasure trove of glory geekiness.
Yes, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Touch not, lest ye be touched, as the rules always apply. Anyway, so you got an upcoming book, Over the Ropes.
Yes.
And it's about wrestling in the 90s.
You could say it's about wrestling. I had a friend of mine from Awesome Comic Book Nostalgia review it, who said it didn't remind me so much of a wrestling book as it is the story behind a wrestling promotion and the people in it.
Okay.
So it's a human story. It's about families. It's a graphic novel that tries not to be another superhero book. It's more of a relatable story. And I think I got most of the story from reading wrestlers' biographies.
Okay.
A lot of wrestlers, I love reading their books when they come out, because I think the real stories are often crazier than what we see on the shows.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably Chris Jericho's, Bret Hart's, and William Regal's books. Dustin Rhodes as well are probably the 4 best wrestling biographies I ever read. And I read them all several times. And I wanted to, when Mad Cave hired me, I wanted to write a comic that was more like the story of a wrestler than a wrestling story.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely set in the world of wrestling, but it is more of a character study. It's about this dude. I read the first issue, and I absolutely love it, Jay. I think you guys did an excellent job. Antonello Costino is the artist. The art is very clean. I love the line work. I love the coloring by Francisco Segalia and Justin Burke on the lettering. He's just a fantastic letterer. It's a great team. How did this all come about? How did you get involved with Mad Cave?
In September of 2018, Mad Cave opened up and had some writer positions opened. I found out about it through Twitter, but I'd already known about Mad Cave from their other titles, Battle Cats, Midnight Task Force, and Knights of the Golden Sun. Read all of those. And also through podcasting, they worked with a former podcast I was on. So I was aware of them, and I've been watching them. There's always new publishers popping up.
Oh, yeah.
And some are fly-by-night, some come and go, and the quality varies.
Yes.
I guess it's fair to say. They've stuck out to me. They've been around since they opened in I can't remember if it was 2014 or 2016, but they didn't release their first titles until with Battle Cats in 2017. Or was it 18? In that time period.
Okay.
So they're really new as far as releasing the titles, but they just like the quality stuck out to me, and I like the stories. And all the books they put out first, their first, line, I guess phase 1, were written by their CEO, Mark London.
Yeah.
I know Mark, and Mark's a fantastic guy. Had, talks with him a lot over the years. And when they opened it up, we got for, I guess, your audition, so to speak, or they asked for a few pages of script from writers for existing titles. So I wrote a few pages for their book Midnight Task Force and Battle Cats. I really liked the pages I did for Midnight Task Force the best. I don't know if you've ever read that one, but that's an urban fantasy set in Detroit in the future with like a cybernetic police detective, homicide investigation kind of thing.
Okay.
And I wrote a story about a side character who was I made him up. He was like a tech guy working the weapons in the Detroit police office. And he was just, he had been let go from a major company that developed nanotech. I wrote a few pages about how a nano monster that he had created formed and came down to the police station, killed everyone, called him daddy, and ended. And so I think what they were looking for was like what most writers strive to do when they write a comic, is every page hooks the reader into the next one, and you finish leaving them wanting more until you get to the end of the trade. And even then, you leave a little something.
Yeah.
So that hopefully they pick up volume 2. So when we got to Over the Ropes, wasn't called Over the Ropes, we had a few working titles. We had Lights Out, was a running title, working title for a while.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me for a few ideas, and I suggested a few, like kayfabe, which is the wrestling term for pretend it's real.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Back in, the 80s, 70s, 80s, and before, they treated wrestling like a legitimate sport. You didn't know that it was a predetermined match until you actually were in the business. And even then, they didn't, quote, smarten you up until later. So I liked the idea of kayfabe as a title for a while, and I used the term in the first issue. But they came up with Over the Ropes as a title, and I really thought that was the best way. I liked that one a lot, as well as the logo and everything else they came up with for it.
Yeah, it looks really sharp. It's a very well done comic book, and and you can definitely tell that you know a lot about the world of wrestling because you use like the terminology of like the jobber and stuff like that, and the way that you introduce the readers into this world. Say like if you're not familiar with wrestling at all or the business of it, like, you don't need to in order to read this book. You explain everything, you introduce the world, the characters. I really think it's a very well done comic, Jay.
I'm really thankful that some of the early readers who have not been wrestling fans have told me I didn't need to be a wrestling fan to read and enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that I wanted. I also wanted to make sure I didn't, tell just a lot of backstory. I didn't want to have to inform everybody about the history of wrestling and what a wrestling match is. And like you said, I didn't want people to have a glossary to read it. Although I wrote one for the editors.
Oh, nice.
I wrote because when the editors got together, our editor, someone we should have mentioned, is Gio at Mag Cave, who is amazing, and she facilitated the creative team, as well as Chris Fernandez, who is a chief editor. But in the beginning, it was me and Gio working together with the script. And she told me, honestly, she said, I don't know anything about wrestling. And I said, well, get ready. And I wrote her, so I made her a glossary of terms, and I looked up a lot of references.
Yeah.
That's actually been a debate. I was seeing a debate on, comics Twitter recently about artists, and there's a fallacy going around that true artists don't use references. I'll tell you that is bollocks.
Yeah.
References are vital, especially in making comics, especially when you don't have a common, in some cases, you don't have a common language with the artist that you're working with. Antonello, I wanted to have him on my podcast, What Happens Next, and gave him an open door. He told me, I'm not that confident in my English.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets my script, and it's not in his first language.
Yeah.
But I provide, and I do this with any book I write, I have files of reference documents, mostly images, and I put those in panel descriptions, and he knows what to do. He gets the idea. It was same with explaining wrestling. There's it's not a spoiler, but in the second issue, there's going to be a dog collar match.
Okay.
And when I floated that to Gio, she wrote back to me, and she says, do people really do this? It seems like they would get hurt. I sent her a link to Raven versus CM Punk dog collar match, and I think the Roddy Piper and Roddy Piper had some over the years as well. And she says, "Oh, are they not going to die? Will they?" So I think it will. I'm hoping that people who read comics but maybe don't watch wrestling will, not be afraid to pick it up, because there is just a lot of story there for. There's a lot of conflict there, and that's where we leave. The main character you mentioned, Jason. He's a jobber, which is, that term comes from someone who does the job in wrestling. When you're told ahead of time, you get the thumbs down, means you're losing the match. You say, okay, I'll go do the job. And if you're always doing the job, they'll start to call you a jobber. And that's what you'll be known for if you get caught in that rut. And that's where the main character, Jason, feels page 1, panel 1 that he's caught. Making, $30 a night in 1992, working for a small southern promotion out of Alabama.
Representing Alabama.
Representing Alabama, yes. And he gets a chance. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the premise of, the first issue is that he gets a chance to, go off script and kind of take the world title for himself. I kind of thought of it as a jobber's wet dream.
Yeah, right.
Like you go to these guys who are really talented guys, because it's not always about talent in wrestling with who gets pushed. Super talented guys who never get pushed the way that they should.
Yeah.
I think a great example right now is, you remember him from WWE. He was Neville.
Mm-hmm.
And now he goes by Pac. And he's, in my opinion, one of the best wrestlers in the world today. He did great things in WWE, but he never got pushed to the top. And he left and went off to do his own thing and proved he could go to the top. He's definitely one that same with a guy further back. You remember the Hurricane, the superhero wrestler?
Yes, I do.
Stand back, there's a hurricane coming through. Hurricane Helms was one of my longtime favorites, and he always played... I liked any wrestler that played a larger-than-life character. You go further back, I really like the face painting guys.
Yeah.
You know, the Road Warriors.
Oh, yeah, man. Demolition,
Sting, Ultimate Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior was my jam when I was a kid. I love the Warrior.
There are some homages to him. Shake the... That's something you'll find in the book. There's a lot of homages to wrestlers from the past and events from the past. There's an Easter egg in the first issue to The Rock and one of his most famous 90s outfits.
Yeah.
But yeah, the main character is a guy who's very frustrated, poor, and, you know, feels like he's got nothing going for him, and he gets this chance to, you know, take the title and go on this tour. That's really the long story for the first volume, which will be 5 issues, starting December 4th with the general release of issue 1. They're going on a southern tour. They're going to hit up Nashville, Memphis, and Atlanta. So we're going to see where it takes them.
All right. What was the reason? Obviously, you set it in the South because we're in the South, and you just wanted to represent, right? Why did you set it 92?
Well, because of the wrestling territory system.
Okay.
Before cable TV changed the game in, you know, the 90s, wrestling was very much a territorial, live show-based business. You had your sections of the country carved out, where up in the top Northeast, they call it the New York territory, you had the WWF, with McMahon Sr. and then McMahon Jr. Down here in Alabama, we had an Alabama territory, we had Midwestern regions, you had the Hart family with the Canadian territories. Mm-hmm. They formed the National Wrestling Alliance, I think in the 1950s. And their job was to elect a champion. They would get together and vote on it. Ric Flair, Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes. Guys like that were decided on in a committee. And the NWA World Traveling Champion would go to all the territories and, you know, face their biggest babyface, or a hero, in wrestling. And that was the model for decades. But when the 90s came in, and that's where I decided to set the story, because that's the last big boom in wrestling, and I think the next big boom is upon us now. Mm-hmm. The reason I set it in the South was because that's where a territory exists, and they see the writing on the wall. They're getting pushed out by cable TV, and the big territory, which is up north. So I made the art imitate life in a bit there, because that was what was happening in the South. Mm-hmm. And in the South, you had WCW, or the Crockett's, who they claimed to be descended from Davy Crockett. I don't know if that was kayfabe or if that was real, but the Jim Crockett promotions in the 90s, well, really in the 80s, was huge business. And they went out of business. They sold out, and Ted Turner bought WCW. So the basis for this wrestling promotion I created in the South, Southern Fried Wrestling, they are going on a tour to try to win a major television contract and hopefully get on cable TV and, you know, carry their business forward, or else they're gonna bite the dust and shutter like a lot of wrestling territories did during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the cool things about this book is, like we were saying, if you're just a comic book fan, if you've not really ever gotten into wrestling or anything, you're going to love it. But if you are a wrestling fan, you're going to see all those little Easter eggs. You're going to pick up on all this little bit of history that you're using, and it's just such a really fun comic book. You know, Mad Cave has done some really interesting stuff, like fantasy. wild sci-fi at times and stuff. I've read Battle Cats. I've read Knights of the Golden Sun was one of my favorites from that first initial
I love
wave.
Knights of the Golden Sun.
Now with Wave 2, we've got Over the Ropes. We just had Show's End come out. Show's End's been amazing 2 issues in so far. I'm really liking that. So I really feel like they're expanding out their line, trying something new, and this book really helps along with that.
They are doing that. I know a lot of ways they're doing that we'll talk about another time. But I can say that this is I've got 3 series with Mad Cave. Mm-hmm. And my next one will be coming out in March. So we'll be talking about pre-orders for that in December. It'll have nothing to do with wrestling, but it will have a lot of combat. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, heck yeah.
We'll talk about that in the future.
Heck yeah.
They are expanding. That is true. Keep an eye on everything Mad Cave is doing.
Yeah, doing it. Great. And get your pre-orders in right now for Over the Ropes. Absolutely. It's a really fun book. I really did like it. Jay, you do have a podcast as well. You want to talk about that real quick?
I do. I'm a writer who happens to have a podcast. It's What Happens Next Versus. I'm glad you asked because we're actually bringing out something really new on it. We do versus debates. That's really been done a lot, though. Mm-hmm. You can look anywhere and see, what would happen if, Superman fought Thanos, or if Spider-Man fought Luke Skywalker. Some just really tired matchups. You see some, they're good, and then some, it's been done a lot. So we've been doing some battle debates, and I was just thinking, how can I make this different? So we're introducing a What Happens Next card game. Mm-hmm. We're going to make it less of a straight debate, point 1, point 2, point 3, and it's more of a card game. We start out with a card, we draw a card, it might say something like, your characters must swap superpowers, or this character got a note about the fight 3 days before, or you receive a mystery weapon, or a call for help. So it's really an anything can happen type scenario, which is really more like creating a story of a battle than just debating a battle. So you can look at our episodes on any podcast app. Just search for What Happens Next Versus, or jaysandlin.com has all the episodes, book info. Anything else I'm doing is there as well. But we may be selling the decks soon.
Oh, neat.
I'll bring you one whenever I get one. We're still putting them together and getting the designs, and working out the rules. It's very much of a Calvin ball game so far, in that I've been making up the rules as I go along.
Yeah.
So we're going to work on some more. I know you have a lot of gaming friends who could probably give me some insight.
Oh, yeah, probably, for sure.
Probably.
I'm sure. Any insight, let us know in the comments, for instance, down below. So you got the podcast going on. You got a great Twitter page. I really love following you on Twitter. It's at
Jay Sandlin _WHN.
All right, absolutely. Your podcast is fun. I really like it. I just recently listened to the episode you did with Liana and Joe from She Said Destroy.
Yes.
With their debate about the Morrigan versus Harry Potter or something like that.
The Wizards of Fae, and I gotta say, they really destroyed the Harry Potter kids.
Yes, and it makes a lot of sense.
And that was fine with me.
Absolutely. So definitely check out not just his comic book work, but also his podcast and his Twitter page and stuff like that. Real quick, I want to ask you, we love comic books here, obviously. Everybody does. You do, I do, and the viewers. What's your favorite comic books that you're reading right now?
I love comic books more than most things, and I am always reading Marvel. Marvel will always be my first love. So when it comes to superhero books and the big two, I'm always going to be reading the Spider-Man titles and the X-Men titles.
You liking the X-Men stuff right now?
They mean a lot to me. Well, I'm 6 months behind.
Okay.
I read it on the Unlimited.
Yeah.
And that's just now getting into the Uncanny X-Men with Cyclops return.
Yeah, the Rosenberg stuff.
What I love about that is the return to the Jim Lee era costume. I'm glad they did that. I'm a big Cyclops fan, even though most people think he's kind of a dick. But really my favorite comics right now are outside of the major brands. I am like you. I love reading the things that Vault is doing. I love Wasted Space. I really love Heathen. And I'm very excited about some of their newer titles, Mall, Plot, Resonant, and Money Shot.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'm liking a lot of what they're doing. There's some other, there's another one I just found recently that's newer, but Black Box Comics.
Yeah.
Have you heard of them?
Yeah, Are they the ones that did Militia?
Yes,
The Chuck Dixon one?
they've got some Chuck Dixon stuff coming out. So I definitely recommend finding some. They're very new too, kind of like Mad Cave. I think they're a little newer than Mad Cave. So find some black box titles if you're looking for some other brands to get into, because there's outside of corporate comics, you get some imagination. You get no limits.
Oh yeah,
stuff going on, and it's where I really like to find my stories right now, especially in my box set, The Deep.
Absolutely. Nice plug there. Thank you for that. What's your favorite movie you've watched this year?
Ooh. All right. Well, in terms of pure significance, you got to say Endgame. Because how much was leading up to that?
Oh, yeah.
The last decade. I mean, I know that's like the generic, answer, but you have to say Endgame just for the significance. That aside, I know that this was, what was the actual date? When did Shazam come out? Was that this year?
Yeah, it was like March, April.
This year feels like it's lasted about 3 years for me. So I really loved Shazam, probably because of what a good family movie it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I can watch it with my son, and he can be as engaged in it as I can be. That is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I can go see Joker, for instance, and I saw Joker last week, and I know everybody has strong feelings about the Joker. I enjoyed the Joker.
Same here, we enjoyed it.
You enjoy it. And the reason I enjoy the Joker is because I can see that movie and I can enjoy it because the Joker does not have any definitive version.
Yeah.
You can make whatever you want about the Joker. He could be flipping burgers in a fast food restaurant and become the Joker. Because he likes a past that is multiple choice.
Yes.
So any other story that goes off on another tangent doesn't ruin the Joker for me. And really it shouldn't for any character. These are all fictional characters.
Yeah.
If you want to put them in a different environment with a new spin. I do see where some of the arguments come from, though, that people who are mentally ill feel that the movie shows mentally ill people just end up committing violence. I get that, and I don't think that's a fair, message to make.
Yeah.
But it's the Joker. What do you expect the guy to do?
Yeah, I definitely...
he's the Joker. There's some issues there.
Yeah.
And I just thought the movie was really great. I loved Joker.
Yeah, I really think the movie is more so criticizing society's response to mental health.
Absolutely.
Like that we just kind of ignore it and just kind of no, just be okay. You'll be fine. Just put a smile on. Put a happy face on. Right?
Yeah, and the resources and the inconsistency and the distribution of resources and what happens in the very beginning. It's not a spoiler, but Joker gets funding cut for his mental health treatment.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't want to say it means it's not his fault.
Yeah, right.
He makes a lot of choices, and he decides to become this anarchist. I really loved the talk show scene, and I loved the ending scene, and that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
So yeah, Joker, Shazam. I loved Endgame. What did you love?
Oh man, my favorite movie of the year so far is probably still Us.
Us is great.
Yeah, I love Us.
Us is good.
It's got a great score behind it.
And I haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters, but I would like to watch it for the Halloween season now.
Oh yeah, it's perfect. It's super creepy. The music's so great. I'm a big Jordan Peele fan.
I am too. I really enjoyed the one last year with the brains and the you know what I'm talking about.
Get Out.
Get Out,
yeah.
Yes.
With the brain, I got really confused.
The one with the brains.
The one with the brains?
The one with the brains.
Did I miss one?
I was about to say Brains and Marnie from Girls dating.
Yeah, right.
That one is great. He's got some other stuff coming out that I'm going to see. Yeah, I loved Us. What I regret about Us is I can only find out the twist once.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can dissect it. That movie's got a lot of layers to it, and I really like that.
I do look forward to going back and watching it, knowing how it ends. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to that.
And I'm on the lookout every time I go to a thrift store to try to find a Hands Across America shirt. I really want one.
It might kind of freak me out now to find one.
Yeah, right? That would be kind of creepy. We just watched Gemini Man, and that one was a little weak.
I've heard bad reviews,
yeah, we just did a review for it, and it was Brooks liked it, but me and Jelani didn't really like it.
Sorry.
Quite as much.
I didn't plan to see it anyway. So.
Well, it definitely, if you're ever at home and like you're sick or something and it just happens to come up on one of your streaming services, sure, just check it out. But it's not that big.
And I did see the new Aladdin, and I know that everybody's complaining about Disney live-action reboots, but I did enjoy the new Aladdin.
I love the new Aladdin.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I love the new Aladdin.
And I think the live-action Aladdin should really, even if they wanted to make it a Disney Plus thing, which I'd be fine with, they need to expand into the further adventures, because they're the Arabian Nights, stories. They call it 1001 there's a lot of stories to tell with Aladdin and the genie and that whole, sandbox.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
They did that with the animated films. They did Return of Jafar.
And they had the Aladdin Saturday morning animated show. I watched that all the time.
I loved that show.
It got dark at times. Right?
Yeah, right.
Remember like Mosenrath?
Uh-uh.
Mosenrath was the evil wizard on the Aladdin cartoon.
Okay.
And he wore a glove, but if you took it off, it was just a skeleton hand.
Yes, I remember that.
He was like, I gave my right hand for power. And I'm just like sitting here eating my Cocoa Pebbles, like, this is awesome for Saturday morning, Disney.
Cocoa Pebbles. Real finally, we'll get into this real quick, because I'm a big cereal head here. What's your favorite cereal?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Oh, dry.
There you go. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is one of the best cereals.
You can't put milk on it or you'll lose the cinnamon, sugar, and the crunch. So don't put milk on your Cinnamon Toast Crunch. If you get nothing else from me, that is the message that I am sending out to the people.
I wouldn't quite agree with that. I'm a big fan of the milk because I love the Cinnamon Toast cereal milk. In fact, why don't they package that and sell Cinnamon Toast milk?
This interview is over.
Okay, sure, fine. Have you had the Cinnamon Toast Churros?
No, I haven't.
Those are really good, and they're perfect for snacking without milk because they're just nice and a little crispy.
Check it out.
Same flavor, though.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, when you snack on it, it does leave a lot of the residue on the hands, so I'll give you that one.
Okay. But Cinnamon Toast Crunch, we can agree that's one of the absolute top cereals.
No question.
With or without milk. Absolutely. I feel like the studio has a lot of tension in it right now. So finally, let's go ahead and mention it one more time. Over the Ropes comes out in December, on December 4th, I believe.
Yes.
Get those pre-orders right now. I don't believe we've hit FOC yet. I think that's at the beginning of November. It's usually like 4 to 5 weeks before, something like that. Let your shops know if they don't carry Mad Cave. Tell them you want them, and then they will. Absolutely. Jay, I want to appreciate you being here, but your comments about cereal milk.
I want to appreciate coming here, and I want to come back and just, next time I'll bring my big box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and just eat it the whole time and rub it on your nice tablecloth.
Ah, sure. Yeah, nice. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, I really do appreciate you coming here into the studio, into Huntsville Attic, and do this video for everybody here in the PCP Army. Get ready for Over the Ropes. If you're a fan of wrestling, if you're not a fan of wrestling, if you're just a fan of great character work in comic books and dynamic artwork, definitely check it out from Mad Cave Studios. So this has been
Jay Sandlin. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at JSandlin_WHN. And anything else I'm doing at jsandlin.com. Like Robbie said, pre-order Over the Ropes issue 1, either from your local comic shop, or check out madcavestudios.com for more on that too.
Yeah, and we'll throw the links down below. So on behalf of everybody here, I'm Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on going over them ropes.